My name is Professor Dreadmore. Years of studying the unseen have led me to tales that keep me awake at night. On this channel, I bring them to you. Today's tale recounts the story of a man named Alex Carter from New York City. Let us begin. My name's Alex. I live in a tiny apartment filled with dusty books and crumpled papers. Most of the time, I write stories no one reads, but something happened last week that hasn't let me sleep since. It started with a story about a stray cat. I penned it as a silly little diversion, something to distract from the monotony. In it, a splotchy grey tabby wanders to my doorstep, meowing as if it belongs. I wrote about feeding it, petting it, giving it a place to sleep. Just fiction, a bit of comfort in my hectic mind. Then, the next morning, when I opened the door, that exact tabby stood there, eyes wide and curious, as if it had read my story too. I fed it, just like I'd written, each step a strange echo of my creation. In my mind, I brushed it off. Coincidence, right? Cats roam the alley outside all the time, but the feeling that something was off gnawed at me. To clear my head, I decided on an experiment. I wrote about finding a crumpled $20 bill on the corner of 4th Street. Didn't think much of it, just a little wishful thinking. Heading out the next day, there it was. The exact bill, just like I'd imagined. I hesitated, glancing around to see if someone was pulling a prank, but there was no one. Just me, alone with my pulse racing. Over the next few days, I tried writing other small things. A bird landing on my windowsill, a car driving by with a specific song blaring through its windows. Each event unfolded with both eerie precision and eerie certainty. Reality was starting to feel like reading the last few pages of a book you thought you wrote, but somehow didn't recognize. The familiar lines were there, but the coherence, the explanation, wavered just outside my reach. Now, caught in this web of well-crafted sentences coming to life, I didn't know what to trust. I was the author, yet I felt like a character trapped inside my own story. Every word I wrote felt like a shiver running down my spine. It was as if the pages were weighted, each sentence a link to some unseen force binding me to this new, twisted reality. I began to obsess over details, worried about what might happen if I left anything to chance. The stories grew longer and more complex, trying to predict every possible outcome. My apartment turned into a fortress of scattered notes and half-finished stories. The outside world felt foreign, a place I'd slipped away from the moment my pen hit the paper. At night, I lay awake wondering whether my grip on reality was slipping. Was I still the Alex I remembered, or a puppet dancing on strings of ink and paper? I kept questioning the simplest aspects of life, but never finding answers. I decided to test my limits, to write a story where nothing happened, something peaceful to break the ominous chain. Instead, the opposite came true. The air felt charged with unease, my surroundings shifting with inconsistencies that left me grinding my teeth at night. Characters in my stories started acting beyond the confines of the script, doing things I hadn't even conceived. A cashier gave me a forewarning glance that sent chills down my spine. A friend called, speaking words I'd only penned in fiction. Reality stretched into something unrecognizable, and my efforts to control it only frayed my nerves further. Panic brokered no silence, only an impatient, lurking dread. Now, writing had taken on a new urgency, as if my very existence depended on each word, each outcome. My hands trembled at the thought of what might emerge if I faltered or grew careless. Nothing and no one felt safe in my world. Were these echoes of my sanity, or something darker manipulating the threads of my thoughts? I tried to write a way out, a neat resolution to this waking nightmare, but my words twisted into shadows I couldn't shake off. The more I wrote, the more the paper pulsed beneath my fingertips, as though guiding my sentence toward an inevitability, as though my own consciousness was conspiring against me. And then, terrifyingly, My nightmares began to seep into my stories. I saw myself on the page, teetering on the edge of an abyss I couldn't quite define. I was helpless, the ink preventing my escape, each letter binding me closer to a fate I hadn't intended to envision. Just as I was about to reach for the pen again, desperation hissing in my ears, I found the lines stamped with a foreboding cliffhanger. The next story I wrote wasn't meant to be consumed by others. It was an act of survival against an increasingly authoritarian narrative. Staring at the scattering of papers around me, I knew I was out of time. Every word felt like a ticking clock, resonating with a promise darker than anything I wanted to imagine. My latest story had detailed events far more sinister than I'd intended, and now reality was aligning itself with grim precision. I found myself tiptoeing around the edges of my own mind, wary of an impending doom that now seemed inevitable. The world outside, a world I had once known, was morphing into the shadows of my worst fears, a terrifying mirror of my inner turmoil. Within the solitude of my room, I became a captive audience to the dreadful play unfolding both on the page and outside my window. Doubt filtered through each thought. Could it be possible to alter the fabric of my unraveling world, or was I doomed to witness the stories continue unchecked, a puppet in their chilling embrace? Desperate, I scrabbled for hope in the middle of despair, penning a story of liberation, a tale where Alex breaks free from the phantom chains of ink and paper. I envisioned an ending where I stepped back from the brink, reclaiming control over my life. As I wrote, fear and hope wrestled inside of me, each sentence a pulse, surging with the urgency to shape a better ending. But whispers of doubt lingered, echoes of uncertainty lapping at my mind with an insistence I couldn't quite silence. The ink swirled into the final paragraph, and I paused, hesitating at the precipice of the page. It was maddening, the immaterial boundary between the reality I hoped to return to and the fiction I feared I had become lost within. When I set down the pen, uncertainty held me in its grip. Would this act of written rebellion shatter the chains, or draw me deeper into an abyss I could neither escape nor understand? In the silence that followed, I awaited the dawn with apprehension. Fear lay not in tangible horrors, but in the chilling ambiguity of an uncertain fate. Whether these words led me to freedom, or merely cementing my fate as the author of a reality I couldn't control. That's all for Alex Carter's tale. I wonder if you found it as disturbing as I did. My diaries hold many more horrors, so subscribe if you're ready to hear more tomorrow. Give this video a like if you want more.